Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Ismail Shahtakhtinski, and I'm the principal immigration attorney at I.S. law firm. We are on the third week of our live videos, question answers, and today's topic is asylum, which is the primary immigration practice area in our firm. Uh, unfortunately, I will have to cut this this meeting short. So I have probably about 40 minutes to answer as many questions as possible. So I'll make a brief announcement about the current state of asylum cases, how long it takes, what to expect, how it can be filed, and what is the process of filing. So I'll try to be as short as possible and then as brief as possible, and then answer as many questions as possible. So currently, the one big news for asylum cases is that affirmative asylum can be filed online with the USCIS. There is a process of filing it with through USCIS account, creating a USCIS account and filing it online. What it does, it gives you a receipt right away. So basically, you have proof that your case has been filed without having to wait for many months until you get the receipt. And that receipt allows you to obtain your driver's license, social security number, and so on. The current processing time for asylum cases is unpredictable. It takes anywhere between, sometimes it's 2 months, 3 months, or sometimes 3 years, 5 years, 6 years. Nobody knows. So as I mentioned before in my previous videos, what happened was asylum cases were being filed. It used to be taking about 60 days to get the result of your asylum case. After filing, you would have about 45 days for your interview and then 60 days for the decision. And then there were too many applicants, and then the budget was cut. If you all remember, during the Obama administration, at one point, the federal government was stalled because of the budgeting issues, and they had issues at the USCIS. So anyway, there was a significant backlog, and that backlog began growing. Also there were significant, wars and issues going on in the world, and too many asylum applications were filed. And this backlog began growing substantially until it got to about 3, 4, 5 years of waiting time until the affirmative asylum interview. And some of the individuals began using it just to apply for asylum, frivolous asylum applications without basis, so that they could get a work permit and just remain in the US. So there were lots of asylum applications that were filed back in 2015, 2014, and so on, without real basis for asylum, just because the applicants were hoping to stay in the U.S., get a work permit, and down the road, whatever happens, happens. Some of them get married and so on. But in 2018, the USCIS tried to put a stop to it, and what they did is they prioritized the newly filed cases, where they said that if somebody files a new case, we'll make sure to review that case within 30 days, 60 days or so. And then if the case gets transferred to immigration court, then the immigration judges will review those cases within 6 months or so. So that should have put the stop to frivolous asylum filings, so that nobody could just enjoy the benefits of work permit for the time being without having real basis. But unfortunately, that didn't work. Then slowly those cases began also falling into the backlog. Now those cases, at that point, I think there were like 250,000 cases in the backlog, which have been waiting for years for the interview. So initially in 2018, it did work. They started interviewing the applicants as soon as possible, but then 2 months turned into 4 months, 6 months, then years. And now when we file asylum cases, almost all of them just fall into the backlog, and nothing. We don't hear back about. We don't get any interviews scheduled. In the recent times, the USCIS had scheduled interviews for the cases we filed back in 2015 and 16. Some of them, not all of them, randomly. Some cases got scheduled for interviews, but nowadays, the parent backlog continues growing. The U.S. says the government is trying to hire new officers and so on. So How many years it's going to take if you file for asylum now until you get your interview is anybody's guess. In immigration courts, I was just in immigration court this morning. It was a remote attendance for the master hearing in a case, and in that master hearing we set up, this was a Boston immigration court, Judge Simmons, and we had the individual hearing scheduled for 2025. It was actually mid-2025, so about 2.5 years into the future. Now, some judges, the EOIR, the Department of Justice, hired a lot of new immigration judges, and some of them have, a relatively clean calendars, and they schedule individual hearings much sooner than that. We had some of the individual hearings scheduled in some other courts 2, 3, 4 months into the future, and some judges still schedule some individual hearings about 3, 4, 5 years into the future. So all of the master hearings, the initial hearings, are done remotely, online, and most of the master hearings we actually terminate. We ask the court to just cancel the hearings. There is no point. We file online written pleadings, which is basically in writing. We file what needs to be told at the master hearing, so that there is no reason to appear in court for that preliminary status hearing before scheduling the individual hearing. The downside is that the court can schedule individual hearing, which would conflict with your attorney's calendar. Then the attorney has to file a motion to continue, and that could potentially further push down your hearing into the future, into the later time. So I will jump into answering questions. I see lots of questions posted. Now, please do write your questions. These questions are anonymous. And I understand that your name can be visible in chat section, but if you don't want your name to appear in chat, please write to the admin, and you see the post there, and they will post those questions. Please also like this video, this live feed, and also subscribe to our channel. This helps substantially to bring in more visitors so that we can continue these live videos and answer as many questions as possible. All right. So the first question: can I apply for asylum if I have TPS? Absolutely, yes. Asylum. Anybody can apply for asylum. Even if you have a green card, you can apply for asylum. Asylum is a protection that no other status, no other form, even permanent residence, doesn't give you this type of protection. So yes, the answer is you can apply for asylum. Hi, sir. Hello, sir. Would you tell me, can we apply asylum in tourist visa? I assume what it means is that they're here on a tourist visa and they want to apply for asylum. Yes, absolutely. You can file for asylum while you're here on a tourist visa. You have 1 year deadline. This is a very strict deadline. So once you enter the United States, you must file asylum within 1 year. There are exceptions to that, such as having a valid status throughout more than that 1 year, or changing conditions, country conditions, and changing circumstances. If it's more than 1 year, discuss it with your attorney. In either case, it's good to be represented. It's best to hire an attorney to represent an asylum case. The statistics show that you have about 3 times higher chance of getting your asylum approved if you are represented by a competent attorney. So after submitting I-589, in what period of time should I upload my story and copies scanned of the new evidence? Well, this is a very good question. Do not file just the application, right? So file your application, prepare the declaration, file it together with it, file the country condition reports, and file all of the documents and information and your story together with it. So one of the significant weaknesses of your asylum case is going to be if you file. Well, one of the mistakes that people frequently do make and weakening their asylum case is filing just a bare application form and hoping to submit evidence afterwards. You can do so, you will be able to do so, but that significantly weakens your case. And the reason being is that the asylum officers basically consider that you filed just an application and then came up with a story, or maybe you didn't really have basis. So let me 1 second. Let me try to focus okay, good. So Prepare your asylum application thoroughly, file it at the same time, as much evidence as possible. Do not delay the filing. Okay. But detail tourist visas. I have one question: how I check my work permit status? You file your work permit, you got a receipt, you can check the status online. You go to USCIS case status. If you Google it, you'll have a link, you'll put the receipt number, and it can give you the status of your work permit. The work permits are significantly delayed, but based on asylum, they're not. If you file 5 months after your date of asylum filing, you will have your work permit approved within 30 days. Okay, I have one question. Okay, good. Hello, if I show up at the airport, can I apply for asylum without being sent back? Yes, the challenge is to show up at the airport. How do you show up at the airport? If you're trying to board the plane to the United States, you will be asked for a visa or passport or green card. And so that's the biggest challenge. That's the reason why many asylum applicants show up at the southern border or northern border in rare circumstances, but most of the time in southern border of Mexico. They come up to the border because that's one way to apply for asylum. But if you somehow could manage to be at the airport, then you could apply for asylum. But I mean, unfortunately, neither I nor any other immigration lawyer can help you with that process. How can I be able to get your contact if I need to communicate with you? How will you reach? Will I reach you, please? So the contact information is posted here in the chat section, under the video, above the video. If you click on the video, you will go to our channel. All of our contacts are there, so you can contact there, and you'll be sent a link with which you can schedule a consultation. My lawyer has submitted my asylum application in August 2022. We haven't received a receipt from asylum office since. Please advise. Yes, that's very common nowadays. If you filed your asylum by paper, with paper, and in August 2022, your lawyer had to file the paper version of your asylum application, all of those cases are stuck, meaning they received it, but the receipt notice confirming that the USCIS received it is significantly delayed. Used to take about 6 months, somewhere in the summer, but now it takes about 7 months or even more to get those receipts. One way you can verify is possibly send an email to the local asylum office. If you look at August, September, October, November, December, January. So it's been 5 months. If you don't get it, say by March, I would email the local asylum office just to make sure that the package wasn't lost or misplaced, or it wasn't filed in the wrong service center. Okay, so if I apply for asylum after 1 year deadline, will I get work permit or not? How long interviews takes in Los Angeles? Yes, we haven't had issues with the work permits after 1 year asylum deadline. You have to have pretty good reasons and strong arguments as to the exceptions of the deadlines for the 1 year deadline. But how long interviews take in Los Angeles? Pretty long. I mean, all over the United States in asylum offices, they take significant amount of time. As I said, it's very random, it's chaotic, there is no pattern. It can be 2 years, 1 year, 6 months, 6 years, nobody knows. Things are, thankfully, are getting relatively improved. The USCIS and asylum offices are prioritizing cases. They're trying to clear things off, hiring more officers, expanding offices. But there is no specifics as to how long it will take. Salam, sir. I see only hearing date are coming for people coming illegally crossing Mexico border. In fact, they are even approved for green card, whereas people here on tourist visa apply for asylum. No, that's false. And first of all, you cannot see it. So I wouldn't want you to please post any misinformation on the chat. There is no way you can see which cases are being scheduled first, or that if you come through Mexico border, that they're approved for green card. There is no such a procedure. So that's false information, unfortunately, you got. And my recommendation is to not repost or spread the same false information to other applicants. That significantly damages the people. Somebody may decide to come through the border, which is a very difficult process. You get detained, you get jailed, in immigration jail. or you may be just turned back and left out without being able to enter the U.S. at all, and your tourist visa may be canceled. So maybe somebody who may be in the U.S. may do it because of this type of misinformation. Please do not spread this information. That's wrong. That's false. I have no hearing date still. Well, yes, many people don't have a hearing date. I've applied for asylum. Can I bring my mom here on tourist? Your mom can apply for a tourist visa. You cannot bring her here. She can apply on her own, and there is a pretty good chance that they'll deny it because you're here applied for asylum. They may presume that she's also going to stay here permanently. So the issue with family members, parents, relatives applying for a tourist visa, and I'm talking about immediate family members such as parents, siblings, children, spouses, for a tourist visa while one of the family members is in the U.S. pending asylum. The issue is the non-immigrant intent. So once you apply for a tourist visa, you have to demonstrate that you do not plan to permanently remain in the U.S. But once you have, your sibling here saying that we are being ethnically persecuted, for example, or religiously persecuted, then it's presumed that that other family member is also going to apply for asylum for the same reasons. So is it true that asylum cases in other states are moving faster than California? Well, sometimes it may be true if there is overflow of cases, if there is a backlog, but USCIS offices, asylum offices, they try to balance you have to understand the USCIS asylum division has a certain budget of hiring this many, officers. So once they see that one office gets a lot more applications and they're significantly backlogged, so they hire more officers to California office rather than, for example, New Orleans, Louisiana, or Arlington, Virginia office. So, they try to balance it out, but sometimes it happens that one office gets more cases and less resources than the other. All right. If we transit through the third country due to the lack of direct flights and we cannot enter to this country and apply for asylum, are we denied? You mean to the third country? Yeah, no, I don't think transit is an issue. Now, they are proposing the change in law, which would create a presumption that you don't qualify for asylum if you pass through a third country and didn't apply for asylum. And that's, even though that hasn't become a law yet in terms of creating presumption, but there is always this question. It's a question that, the judge or the officer will ask most likely. And, it's a legitimate question because asylum is not a choice. You're not supposed to come to the U.S. to apply for asylum for economic reasons. That, it's better to be in the U.S. than, for example, in a country in Europe. So if you are in, for example, I had lots of consultees that are talking to me about, asylum in the U.S. And when I ask them where you are, they're like, I'm in Finland, right? And I'm okay, but how are you going to explain why you didn't apply for asylum in Finland? Oh, well, it's too cold here, but that's not the basis. So, if you give that explanation, that's the reason. Don't come to the U.S. because you'll most likely be denied asylum because you had a perfect and, I was going to say warm place, but Finland is not that warm. I mean, weather-wise, but if you were, safe somewhere, a perfect and safe place where you could apply for asylum, and you're saying, oh no, my choice is U.S. because I always want to be in the U.S. That's a good reason not reason, but a good indication that you may not really deserve asylum. You may be just looking for shopping for a place to live. And asylum is the last resort. So asylum is only granted because the U.S. signed treaty, the convention on the status of refugees, and that's why U.S. is granting asylum. It's not because U.S. is trying to help refugees. It does, and that's why there is the refugee program for the United Nations and the United States every year. Except I believe now it's 55,000 people every year through refugee resettlement program. But asylum is sort of like mandatory. That's why if your asylum is denied, then you can appeal it to the Board of Immigration Appeals, which is still within executive branch within Justice Department. But then you can also appeal it to the federal court and then to the Supreme Court, because you do have that right for asylum. So it's a mandatory process, but it's not just to help you out that the U.S. gives asylum. It has to be. It's obligated. Okay. So can someone with stamped H-1B visa expiring in the next 3 months travel from India to the approved LCA location in the USA and work for the new client? Oh, this is a complicated. I mean, here's the deal. You have H-1B visa, right? So you have a lawyer who did this. Your employer hired that lawyer. So consult with that lawyer who's most familiar with your case, and they'll be able to answer your question. But if it's a new area, they'll have to file a new LCA, and they may even have to file an amended petition. I'll tell you this much, but that you need to consult with a lawyer about this. Then file an NHC extension, and it's continuation of the same question, unfortunately, so I cannot give you specific case advice here. I'm answering questions, general questions, to educate those listeners. But for a case-specific advice, consult with a lawyer, and the best lawyer to consult with will be not me, but the lawyer who handled your H-1B. The employer has the H-1B lawyer who handled it. They'll help with that. Do you help to prepare for asylum interview if person applied for asylum in 2016 and waiting for the interview? Thank you. We're still not have money. Oh, attorney. I'm sorry. Yes. So we do that. We handle asylum cases. We take over the pending cases. We'll review what you filed. We'll update that information. So there are different, levels of engagement. If you don't want us to touch your case, but just prepare you for the interview, then I can prepare you for the interview. If you want me to prepare you for the interview and participate at your interview, I can do so. But the best idea is to make sure that your case is complete, that you have the highest chance of approval. And for that, if you have a pending asylum case, we can take over it and review it, update the information, the country conditions. We can work with you on your statement, your declaration, to make sure that it's properly prepared and prepare you for the interview and participate at your interview. Right now, all of the asylum offices allow remote attorney participation. Not only allow, but they also prefer that. And I've spoken to several asylum officers after the interviews, and I asked them, do you prefer remote or not? They started this during the pandemic, but they prefer so because they don't like sitting someone there watching over them. There is also a little bit, crowded room. You have an interpreter, the applicant, and then the officer, and then the attorney. Plus, it saves substantially on the costs, the legal fees, first of all, because I don't have to fly to, for example, from Virginia to Los Angeles, California to attend your interview. I can do it perfectly remotely like we're doing now. So it's a good idea to utilize this. And if you have asylum interview coming up, get a lawyer and make sure you're prepared, because the asylum interview is the most important part of your asylum case. Okay? It's even more important than your individual hearing in immigration court, because asylum interview is your best chance to get your asylum approved without having to even resort to immigration court, spend substantial amount of money on legal fees, and wait for many more years, and be one step from the order of removal. Because in immigration court, if you're denied asylum, then the judge orders your deportation. You can appeal it, but you already have a record of deportation order. So put all your efforts in your affirmative asylum. If you file asylum with the USCIS, that's your best chance. That's going to be the easiest, quickest, fastest, and the best chance to get your asylum. And do prepare for it very well. Make sure that you prepare all the documents, you prepare for your interview, you thoroughly review your application. Do not memorize, do not just study your application and repeat it at your interview. At your interview, asylum interview, you are supposed to answer the questions. And it's not what you wrote that matters more as much as what you say. And if there is any inconsistency between the two, then you're going to have trouble. So prepare with an attorney and go with the attorney to your interview, or have your attorney participate remotely via video conferencing, which asylum offices now prefer and allow. Okay. My friend has applied asylum, but her brother is green card, married USA citizen. So her brother has a green card, right? So what's the chances their parents will be granted tourist visa? Again, same thing. I mean, brother married with a U.S. citizen, green card, permanent resident, and you applied for asylum. Now your parents are on the way here, so there was a question whether they are really, intending to be here as tourists or they're coming to permanently remain here. So again, the chances are low. Okay, so let me see. Apply for asylum. So in I-485 application, if status show card was produced, what it means? It means that your case was approved, you are getting your green card. It's in the mail. Nowadays, the I-485 is adjustment of status. For example, the marriage-based adjustment of status process. So if you apply, for I-130 and I-485 for adjustment of status, nowadays USCIS prefers to approve those cases without an interview. They're trying to, as I said, improve things in terms of backlogs, and they are avoiding interviews. A lot of those interviews take significant amount of time, and most of the delays in the adjustment of status process are caused by the interview backlog scheduling in the local field office. So that's why they send requests for evidence and they try to approve based on the papers you submit. So I-485, if you look at the status and it says card was produced, that means your green card is being produced and you will receive it in the mail. If you don't within 90 days, then contact USCIS, it may be lost. Do we have to submit the original documents as proof? If not available, are the copies accepted? Well, it depends what documents and depends where you're submitting it. So if you're submitting it to immigration, well, first of all, when you file the asylum application or any application, never submit the original document. So in terms of submit, depends what you mean by submit. If you're filing, do not, but have the originals with you. So at the interview, you may be asked if you have the original. So for example, you have a original birth certificate or original medical document, police certificate, do not mail those. Do not file anything. Everything can be filed in copies. Make sure you have the original if you have it. If you don't have an original of something, you only have a copy, be prepared to explain why. Why don't you have an original available at all? Because most of the things nowadays get scanned and people don't use original documents anymore. But don't give a general answer like this. You have to specify exactly why don't you have original. But again, when you file applications, do not file any originals, only copies. Do you have payment plans to work with someone on their asylum case? If so, can I know what it is like? So every case has specific facts. Yes, we do payment plans. It's paid in installments, not sort of like a plan, but an installment when you begin, when you file the case, and then down the road when the interview is scheduled. So those are stages of the process, and those are the payments done based on those stages. But in terms of what it is, how much it's going to be, I don't know. I mean, there are asylum cases, and that's very important to realize. There are asylum cases which cost, 9,000 to 12,000, 8,000 altogether. There are asylum cases that cost $50,000. So it depends on the case, depends on the complexities. There is, what needs to be done or what you want to be done or how complex your case. If we've had an asylum case where I had 3 different experts, we involved high-ranking U.S. officials in the process, lots of writings, memos, briefs, and so on, which obviously cost a lot more. But in most of the cases, as I said, it's much less than that. Okay. After submitting After submitting an RFE, which is a request for evidence, my portal says 6 months for decision to be made. What does this mean? It means what they mean, so that it will take for them to make a decision. May take about 6 months. If they don't respond after you submitted their RFE, then get in touch with them, make an inquiry. You can make all of the inquiries with the USCIS online. Thank you so much, and thank you so much for listening. I applied for asylum with a spouse and child. If the asylum failed, is there any advantage of having a brother who's a U.S. citizen? Can he sponsor us to stay here? No, unfortunately, there is no advantage. He can sponsor, but that will take about 15, 16 years of wait time, and it doesn't allow you to wait here in the U.S., meaning the virtue of that case pending doesn't, by virtue of that case pending, you're not allowed to remain in the U.S. And the reason being is that there is a long wait time. There is 15, 16 years of queue until your turn, your visa becomes available. And sometimes I am asked on this process, can it be expedited? Unfortunately not. There is no expedited process for that because the USCIS doesn't even have power to expedite it itself, because it's not the processing delay for the siblings of U.S. citizens. It's the congressional limit on the number of green cards, so available for siblings of U.S. citizens. A U.S. citizen can sponsor his brother or sister, but there is about 15 years of waiting time before they can be issued a green card. All right. Hi, I am from Algeria. Can I seek asylum in border? Anyone can seek asylum at the U.S. border. There is no limitation which country's citizen you are. Anybody. I mean anybody from any country. If the case is denied, is there any chance to get accepted within the protection program? What is the protection program? So if you're talking about temporary status, TPS, temporary protected status, yes, but you don't have to be waiting for the case to deny it. If your country is designated for TPS, currently, the newly recently designated are Ethiopia, Ukraine, Haiti, Yemen, Syria. There are many different countries that are designated for temporary protected status. If you are a citizen of one of those countries, then you can apply for TPS. You don't have to wait for the decision. You can still, again, have application for asylum pending and be considered for asylum while you have the TPS. Back to my previous question, is it a final decision or decision to invite me for an interview? I don't remember which question this refers to. I'm sorry, sir. We will try to optimize this. I cannot, continue answering the same question. Admin here, if I come to US and claim asylum at airport, then where I will stay? Will they provide any accommodation? No. Well, you may. So the accommodation may be the jail. So immigration detention is the accommodation they provide, the government. But there is a program that CBP One app. That is an app you can download, and there is a process to come to the U.S. border. Now, we're not talking about the airport, the U.S. border with Mexico, and try to go through this appointment with the CBP officer. And from what I heard from some of our clients for whom we're handling asylum cases, defense of the immigration court, is that they get placed in some kind of motel or hotel where they go through this, checkup. Before they are released, they're basically given this I-94 with the parole, and they can enter the U.S. and then they get called, for the immigration court hearing. If my portal says 6 months for a decision to be made after submitting an RFE, is it a final? Okay, again, we don't know. So it may be the interview, it's maybe not. But I think we cleared this question as much as we could. Again, if you submitted an RFE and it says they'll wait for the decision can be they want to schedule an interview, or they may make a decision on the paper, or they can send you a notice of intent to deny if they still have any questions, or they can deny the case. Nobody knows. You just mentioned that Ethiopia has TPS status for someone in the USA in the asylum process in the never-ending wait. Should they apply for TPS as well? Is there any advantage to doing that? Yes, of course, you should apply for TPS. It's a good idea to have a TPS, and it's something. The Ethiopian TPS, it was announced. I don't think it's been published yet in the Federal Register. I will check, maybe, but if it is, then yes, it's a good idea to file it. It's just an additional protection. There is, if you're waiting for asylum, you have a pretty good case for asylum. It's a choice, but it's good to have that additional layer. So if you have a good basis for asylum, then you may not want to spend additional money on, filing for TPS. But in terms of the filing fees, it's only $50. It's a good idea to file. All right. So let me. Yes, it's published on December last year. Yes, it is. Yeah, it is published. So just a month ago, and now you can file for TPS on Ethiopia. Okay, any other questions? Last call. As I said, I'm gonna have to cut this video short. Unfortunately, I have a scheduling conflict, but we will return to this again. I will try to do it next week or the week after. We will post the announcement before. If you have any questions after this interview, you can post in the comment section. I will try to answer as much as possible. Again, please press like and please comment and subscribe to our channel. Thank you very much and have a nice rest of the week.